Okay, we are going to do lecture 10, part 1. Excuse me, sorry. Lecture 10, part 1, we're going to be talking about functions and their graphs for this. This is one that I think is just going to take a lot of practice for us to run through and figure out what we're doing. It's going to seem kind of confusing, but as you guys practice it and get more and more involved with it, it's not as bad as what it first appears. So, first thing I want to talk about is just what are functions, okay? So, remember our definition of a function says that for each input, there is only one output. And we talked about how there's other words that we can use besides input and output. For example, we can use X and we can use Y. Okay, so basically, if I have an X, okay, I must have a different Y. So if I had an X sub 1 and a Y sub 1, I could not have an X sub 1 and a Y sub 2. So essentially what that means is my X's would be the same. So if I had a point like 1, 0 on the graph, and then I also had a point like 1, 2, okay, so my X values are the same and my Y values are different. Well, what would that look like if I was graphing that? Well, I would have a point at 1, 0, and I would have a point at 1, 2. So I cannot have 2 points stacked on top of each other. Okay, so what they did then is they created something so that when you're looking at a graph, you can tell if something is a function or not. Okay, so for each input, there is only one output. That's just the definition of a function. This vertical line test theorem basically says that if you draw a vertical line, it can only hit the graph of a function once. Okay? If you draw a vertical line, it can only hit the graph of a function once. Okay? If it hits more than once, so basically what that's saying is if it hits more than once, it's not a function. If it hits more than once, it is not a function. Okay, so we're going to do a couple examples with our vertical line test. I know that this is not the first time that you guys have heard about the vertical line test, but we're going to run through a couple examples here. So we've got our graph down here. Okay, so I'm going to draw a vertical line. When I draw this vertical line, it can only hit in one spot. Okay, so if I draw my vertical line here, does this hit at more than one spot? Yes, it does. So what we would say is this is not a function. How do I know that that is not a function? It does not pass the vertical line test. Okay, so remember, by definition, this is saying that if I have an x value, so let's say that this x value here is like 6, well, this point is at 6, 1, and this point is at 6, 3. So my x value of 6 has two different output values. Okay, it would not pass by the definition of a function. It does not pass the vertical line test. Okay, let's look at a different one here. Okay, vertical line test again. If I draw my vertical line, hits at one point. Let's just check, make sure it doesn't hit. Is there anywhere where we're worried about it hitting more than one? All of these vertical lines that I draw, it only hits at one point. Okay, so we could say this is a function, and we know it is a function because it passes the vertical line test. Okay, so first part about this, again, just defining what a function is based on its graph.